Welcome to Compassionate Care Conversations. My name is Scott Bradley. I'm the owner of Bradley & Son Funeral Homes, serving Morris, Union, and Essex counties in New Jersey, and SimpleCremationNJ.com, which serves the whole state of New Jersey. I'm a third-generation funeral director, clinical social worker, and a certified psychoanalyst. Today, it's my pleasure to introduce Laurie Hauptman.
Happy to be here.
Thank you. She's a lawyer with her family law firm, Hauptman Hauptman, located in Livingston, New Jersey, and she specializes in elder law, estate planning, and special needs planning. It's been a pleasure of ours to recommend the Hauptman Law Firm over these many years, so thank you.
Thank you for referring.
All right, so tell us about yourself and how you found your way into being a lawyer.
Well, it's interesting. I probably am one of the few people that say that can say that I wanted to be a lawyer since I was a little girl.
Really? Okay.
I did, and I fulfilled that. I always knew I wanted to be a lawyer, and did it directly from college to law school. I felt that it was a good use of my skill sets with helping people, talking to people, communicating, advocating, and the genesis of the areas of law that I went to sort of fulfilled that a little bit more as I changed areas of law over the years.
So, you, as a little kid, you wanted to be a lawyer?
I did.
Family lawyers?
No family was a lawyer. My father was a commercial artist. My mother was an art therapist. I have art in my family. Oh. Nobody was a lawyer. I just felt that it was the right fit for me. And by the way, there's many different types of law, and ironically, a lot of people ask, what area of law, did you know what area of law you wanted to go into? Really isn't sort of like that. The reality is that you tend to go into the area of law where you got your first job.
Yeah.
So a lot of us intern before we do summer work and law clerks. That can sometimes be a stepping stone to our first law job, and then whether or not you go into a certain area of law. But actually, my first area of law was insurance defense litigation. Yeah. I represented insurance companies where people sued based upon auto accidents or slip and fall. And I also represented self-insured entities like, Calidor or Lord and Taylor, individual places. And so that's where I got into litigation. But again, it was more because I had summer jobs in working for a law firm that did that.
Yeah. So how did you get into estate planning and special needs planning?
So I actually met my husband as a lawyer in the law firm in my first law job. I understand everyone now, Hinge is out there and all these kinds of, but they didn't have any of that with us at our time. But I didn't clerk after law school. I went directly to a law firm. Some people can clerk for a year with a judge. Right. It's really nice if you can. My son did. It's a stepping stone for people to do that. I went right to working in a law firm. And like I said, the law firm was insurance defense. My husband clerked and came into the practice a year later. We both then worked for a very short time together before I went to another law firm. But what ended up happening was I worked in litigation for about 7 years. We got married we met, were engaged in 4 months, married in a year. It was right for us. And then he decided to open his own practice.
Yes.
And initially, I was still working for a law firm, part-time. I started having a family. But he wanted to have his own law firm. And again, sort of when you first start out in law, you become a generalist where you work on many different areas. And really the catalyst for him to start learning about elder law was navigating the process with his two grandmothers.
Yeah. There's a great picture on your website.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
His two grandmas lived with his parents, kind of old generations, with the idea.
Oh, that's great.
And one of them had long-term care needs, and Yale navigated the whole Medicaid process sort of by himself. And the other one ended up going into an assisted living and also navigating the process. And Yale had the sort of foresight, whatever, to see that this was an area of law, that we were a growing and aging baby boom population,
Right.
and that this was an area of law that a lot of people didn't know. And he really started taking classes and, like learning, going to, courses and learning and self-teaching. And it really is an amazing area of law that a lot of lawyers don't do.
Yeah.
And for us, it really, it answers our area of, it answers our need to help people.
Yeah.
Lawyers get really bad reputations, or have them, which
Not deserved at all.
Which I agree is not deserved, because I find the people that have the jokes about the lawyers are the first one that call the lawyers.
Yes.
Are the first ones. But in my case, I always say to somebody when I do a consultation, which I do always at no charge, I'm not suing anyone. I'm not bankrupting. I'm not arresting anyone. I just help people prepare good estate planning documents, or also navigate asset protection planning,
Yeah.
or help their children that may have special needs. So it's a really good area of law in a sense that it's an advocate for people.
Yeah. Hearing your earlier story about your parents, I'm thinking that you use that artistic side of you in this. I think you need to be creative in the estate planning and special
Of course
needs
it is,
planning.
and nothing is the same, and
Yeah.
there is some element of continuity, but
Yeah.
when we actually call it designing a plan.
Yeah.
Designing.
Yeah.
And we design a plan based upon each individual's situation. What are their wants? What are their needs? What are their concerns? And we're also part therapists,
Yeah.
but I'm sure you are in some ways too, where
Yes.
we have a little bit of that. Well, you actually have a degree.
Yes, I do.
But I don't, and I don't have a social work degree, but I find that we are often mediating and handling people's concerns.
Yeah.
And it's a very emotional area of law,
Yeah.
because you're dealing with people that, you're dealing with family members, you're dealing with dynamics, who you leaving money to, who's taking care of you.
I think it's a very vulnerable time in people's lives.
is.
So when people feel vulnerable and anxious and scared, it's nice to have that kind of protection that you provide. So.
And it's all about being proactive, right? So our message always is about preparing instead of repairing,
Yes.
being proactive instead of reactive.
I love that.
And because if you plan, and I always tell people that's the word of the day, like Sesame Street used to have a letter of the day.
Yeah.
The word of the day, in my opinion, for everyone, in both of our businesses, is plan. Because you want to know where you're going, because you have more choices when you plan.
Yeah.
You have more say in how you want your funeral, or how you want your preparations.
Yeah.
And that's the same thing with what I do.
Yeah.
And if you don't plan, then you have less choices possibly, and somebody else is making the decisions.
We're going to get into more of that. So I read, as we already talked about, you earned your stripes in the courtroom.
Yeah,
and that you write that that courtroom experience is helpful for your current clients. And I'm curious, is it common for the kind of legal work we're talking about today to go to court?
Well, I really only go to court for my guardianship cases. And it's really it's not an adversarial, most often an adversarial situation. When someone turns 18, if they have special needs, and they do not have the cognitive abilities to make medical and financial decisions.
Right.
We need to actually appoint the parents who, up until the 18th birthday,
Right.
were their legal decision makers. We have to appoint them as formal guardians.
Right.
So they do require a court process to do it. The hearings are often conducted, actually, if a hearing is required, and not always it is, if it's a situation where there's no opposition, they're often conducted on Zoom since COVID, and they have not changed that. So it is a court hearing, but it's done on Zoom. The judge is in the chambers. I'm in the office. My clients are at home. The attorney that represents the person that the guardianship is being brought for is in their office. But that is the court work I do. We really don't get into our area of law. We don't really get into probate litigation.
Right.
We try not to get into even guardianship contesting litigation. We have done it, but you really have to have a practice that's geared up for it. But why it helps to have the history and the experiences, I can say to somebody, which I had the other day, when they're in the room with me and a child says, my mother or father wants to change their will and leave somebody out, I ask the child to leave the room.
Yeah.
And I have a direct conversation privately with the parent, because I know that that ultimately in the future could be a will contest.
Yes.
And I have the knowledge to prepare the case in a sense that I would ultimately be a witness to say, you know, was there any undue influence? Did the parent convey the information? So my history of litigation,
Yes.
my history of problem solving and advocating in a litigation situation helps.
Yes.
Plus I read contracts.
Right.
Because I have assisted living contracts I read. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, and so I did a lot of that in the area of law that you do.
Yeah.
You know, when I did law, because you are trained to know how to read a contract, how to interpret. And so you kind of take your skill sets as a lawyer into many different areas.
Yeah. I love that, because I think it brings a deeper and wider aspect to, say, estate planning, where you're really thinking of all of the possibilities and can plan for all of that in advance.
Right, so you always want to be a little bit one step ahead.
Sure.
Do you understand that if you leave it to a friend, money, there's going to be inheritance tax? Right. Most people didn't know that.
Right.
Somebody will say, have a married couple, their son is married to a lovely woman, they love her. If the son predeceases the parent, they initially say, not often, but sometimes, I want my daughter-in-law to get the money. But she would be subject to inheritance tax, a certain percent. So maybe you want it to go to your grandchildren, and your daughter-in-law can be the trustee of the trust for the children. But they wouldn't know that unless I conveyed the information to them.
Right.
So I believe in making sure people have information. It's all about what you don't know,
right,
so that you can make a decision about what you're going to do with that information.
Right. My next question is a good segue into this. You know, as a social worker and a psychotherapist, I'm a big proponent of collaboration. And you write on your website about the firm's interest in working collaboratively with your clients. And I think we've been talking about this in lots of different ways, where you may ask the child to step out of the room with the parent, and that's collaborative work. You're listening to what they're saying. You want to serve them well, but you also want to give them your wisdom. So, but how do you accomplish that on a day-to-day basis?
Well, it's not only collaborative within the family. I kind of analogize myself to a general contractor, because when I'm doing long-term care asset protection planning, because people are very concerned about running out of money, because we are living longer, and as a result of that, if you have a long-term care need, people are running out of money.
Yeah.
But where I really am collaborative is I work with people's financial advisors. I work with their accountants. It's not just within the family. I do always work within the family, but understand that my client is always the senior, or it's the person that I'm doing estate planning. And that is very important to always explain to clients and their families who my direct relationship is to, where the relationship is. I want to work with family members, but ultimately the decision makers are the clients. And so I work with if they do have a care manager and social worker, I work with them. So I kind of analogize myself to a general contractor, that we're a team.
Right.
And it's always better to be working as a team, because you problem solve and you all feed off on coming up with the best solution for the client.
Right. I'd never really thought of it that way, but it makes perfect sense. And on occasion, you work collaboratively with us, or we
Correct.
work with you.
Right.
because funeral planning might come up with Medicaid spend downs and all kinds of things.
So people often ask us, a really frequent question is, when do I prepay for a funeral?
Yeah.
People very much want to know that they have money to pay for your services, the kinds of amazing services that you provide in a beautiful structure that you have and your building. And we tell people, yes, you would want to make sure you have it. And so that does come up in our conversation, but we explain to ways in which you do it, whether or not you want to do a irrevocable burial trust,
Right.
whether or not it will convert to or start with a revocable burial trust, which will convert to an irrevocable burial trust. And yes, what we do, and probably what you do, is we ask for people's wish list, and we try to accommodate it and provide them with the information on how to accomplish it. And that's really the way I work with Bradley.
Yeah.
And we love that. Yeah. And people do very much care just about how they wanted their life situations to unfold. They do care about how their death unfolds.
Yeah.
I do ask people, every estate planning I do, when I'm not doing necessarily long-term care planning, but in every estate planning, I appoint a funeral agent, a person that's in charge of who's going to make funeral arrangements. And I do ask them, do they have a preference at the moment? Do they have a preference of cremation, burial, or at the moment, no preference?
Right.
We do have that conversation. People are pretty candid and want to have it. Some of it is cultural, by the way, and I'm sure you know that we have to be sensitive to cultures, and I'm always looking to educate myself, like I'm sure you are, about cultures and how to handle conversations about death.
Yep.
You and I handle conversations about death all the time, but being respectful of the fact that some people don't want to think about it. Right. But death is inevitable for all of us. Yep. And we try to take away the mystery, right? And the sort of, what's the word I'm looking for? Resistance, and that it doesn't have to be a negative conversation.
Right. Well, we're going to get more into that in just a minute, but thank you.
Thank you.